What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to American versus European suburbs. So, to be clear, what we're talking about are areas on the outskirts of towns and cities with all the residential homes and whatnot, right? And to be honest, what really caught my attention today was this video by Adam something, and the title, which says, Why US Suburbs Suck. Why US suburbs suck. Okay, well, maybe we're not the greatest place on planet Earth. I don't know, but you're saying we suck? Well, I at least want to hear your argument about this. So let's take a look here. American versus European suburbs.
This is a typical American suburban street. It's wide, the houses are very far apart and look mostly the same.
That's fair. As an American, I can say this is pretty typical. This is pretty average. Average American neighborhood. Okay.
There is barely anything on the well-manicured lawns, post boxes, a few trees or bushes, and the occasional fire hydrant.
Okay. Yeah. It's nice. It's good.
Now compare these.
It's good. This is my childhood he's talking about here. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this guy. Hold on. Look at this guy. Hold on. Look, see? On the right-hand side. Look at that. He's got a golf ball for his mailbox. That's pretty cool. How can you say that this sucks? We got novelty mailboxes.
Now compare these to a suburb in Leipzig, Germany. What differences do you notice?
Oh my. Wow. Never seen a German suburb neighborhood. Well, okay. I'm noticing some things. There's a lot more character to this neighborhood. This is like normal in Europe, is it? There's a lot more trees. The houses are closer together. The sidewalk, the pavement is like bricks, and there's brick borders between the road and the sidewalk too. And the road is more narrow. I don't know. It definitely feels very neighborhoody to me. I like this. Okay.
First off, there is stuff around you. The streetscape is very diverse and mentally engaging.
Mentally engaging. There's... What? This isn't mentally engaging enough for you? What? You get a gigantic lawn. Now, this isn't like every American in the entire United States. Like, this is a nice neighborhood. Like, if I'm being completely honest. These are pretty big front lawns, and seems like a nice place. But, yeah, there's a lot of Americans who live like that. But apparently that's not mentally engaging enough.
First off, there is stuff around you. The streetscape is very diverse and mentally engaging. In comparison, the American suburb looks like a desolate urban wasteland.
Okay. A desolate or just the choice of words here today is gonna be enough to entertain me, I can tell. Desolate urban wasteland. Yeah, okay. You got people like dying and starving like around the world in a desert or something. This is not that bad.
Also, in the European suburb, the street is narrow, there is a 30 kilometers per hour speed limit, and the buildings are close together.
Yeah.
Do notice the tram tracks. In this suburb, you can live car-free. If you want to go to the center, you can either take the tram or ride your bike for 20 minutes on dedicated bike lanes.
Okay. That's nice. You have like a streetcar, a tram, like built into the roads. You don't have to own a car. here in America, I've said this many times on this channel. America is built for cars. You have to own a car. Like it's a big problem if you don't own a car. You're at a big disadvantage. Um, unfortunately, there's no real alternative. There's some crappy buses sometimes. They don't really go everywhere. But the idea that a streetcar or tram could like go through your neighborhood, I've never. I didn't even really know that was a thing. Like that's pretty amazing. It's pleasant. A bike, you can bicycle. God forbid Americans bicycle. Sometimes we have bike lanes. Sometimes.
Or take the S-Bahn because there's also a train station. In the American suburb, you have no option but to drive. Head out onto the busiest road, a horrifying mix of street and road, onto the jammed highway, and after an hour you'll be in the center, searching for a parking spot.
That is true. That is true. Now, if you live in a big American city, New York City, Los Angeles, whatever, there's gonna be options to walk. Taxi, Uber, bus, subway. There is stuff available. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about U.S. suburbs, which are, I think we're kind of talking about mid to small sized cities and towns in the surrounding area. Absolutely valid criticism that you need a car. There needs to be all the space for parking spaces, drive it. It's not, I guess in America we're just very used to this. This is just normal. So the idea of somebody saying to me, like, oh, what hell that you have to drive your car. For me, as an American, it's like, well, I've been doing that my whole life. I don't really know any other way. So it's not that bad to me. For a European, probably sounds like it could be very annoying, I suppose.
How about going to a restaurant? In the European suburb, there are dozens of different, unique, local restaurants reachable on foot, by bike, or public transit. In the American suburb, you're an hour walk away from a chain restaurant next to a busy road. If you want to eat, you gotta get in your car.
An hour walk? Like, I live in an American suburb. Like, I've lived in several. So I know what we're talking about here. An hour walk to a chain restaurant? Let me think for a second. How long would it be to walk to a restaurant? There's a like little mom and pop family owned restaurant that happens to be like not too far down the street. That would be 15 minutes to walk, 15 or 20 minutes to walk there. That's one place and a gas station. To after that, it would probably be like a 45-minute walk to somewhere else. That is true. Okay, that's true.
What if you have children? In this European suburb, there are 3 schools close by. Kids can walk or bike there on their own and learn to be independent early on. In the American suburb, a child could get to school after 35 minutes of walking, mostly along a busy arterial road, also having to cross a 6-lane road. And somehow, there's no crosswalk, so kids have to be driven to school every day by mommy and daddy.
No. That's... You take the bus. The school bus. The yellow, iconic yellow school bus. You guys, don't you have something like that as well? That starts as early as elementary school when they're very little kids. Some parents can choose to take their kids, like drive your kid to school. Like, I don't really see why you would do that. And sometimes elementary schools are close enough, depending on where you live. Although in America, it's not accepted that kids that are very young, like 5 years old or 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they're not really even allowed to walk anywhere alone. That's not even acceptable. Like you could get in trouble, like have child protective services called if people thought you were putting your kids in danger by letting them walk to like a couple miles to school. I think like 40, 50 years ago in America, that was considered okay though. Nowadays, no. But we're not parents aren't trapped driving their kids to school. There's a big school bus system where buses drive around all the neighborhoods just for children and pick them up and bring them to school. But to be fair, the idea of like public transportation or whatever, other than that, no, that's not available for adults or kids. Also, there's not a 6-lane highway in the suburbs. In the suburbs, man, there's not a 6-lane highway that you gotta walk through. That is not a thing. Very
The same
rare.
goes for sports. Over here, kids can take a 10-minute walk to the nearest sports field or a 3-minute bike ride on calm, safe streets on their own. In the US, it's a 40-minute march through a maze of streets partially along a major transit artery. Gotta get
Sometimes. It really depends on where you live.
in the SUV and let mommy drive you to practice. This is where the term soccer mom originates from, by the way. People
That's true. This is more true. Much the driving to school thing, no, not really true. There's buses for kids. Driving to like athletic practice, and that's true. That you do have to get driven by your parents a lot. So that is a major drawback. That's true.
lament today's children for being overly dependent on their parents. But in such neighborhoods, children don't have a choice but to be dependent. Otherwise, they cannot go anywhere. They are stuck at home. In contrast, in European suburbs, kids can be let out safely to move around on their own, to go to places they want to, without the need for the mommy and daddy taxi service.
All right, buddy. It's not that everything is necessarily so far away, or it's not that you couldn't bike to places or walk to places. It's more that in the modern day USA, children are really like kept very close and not allowed to go out on their own as much. I don't know what happened in the last 30, 40 years, but you don't really see kids venturing off on their bicycle or walking many, many kilometers away or miles away. That's not considered okay. Kids could do it, like physically are able and willing, but it's just not something American adults really allow their children to do anymore. Don't allow that responsibility anymore.
Do note that yellow residential building on the left. That is a mid-rise. European suburbs tend to be a mixture of those and single or multi-family homes, like on this street.
Oh, okay. Interesting. In American suburbs, there's not many apartment buildings or anything. It's mostly single family homes, all detached.
Zoning in US suburbs only allows for single-family homes, and they are usually placed very far apart, leading to low density and long distances. This makes public transportation non-viable. Over here in Europe, hundreds of people live within walking distance of this tram stop. In the US, if you put a tram stop here, you'd have a few dozen people living within walking distance. Meaning, even if you built public transit here, almost nobody would take it, because no matter how you build it, people would be too far away from it. If you're half an hour away on foot from the nearest tram stop, you'll take your car instead. And people do. So giant highways had to be built, rammed right into the city, usually demolishing non-white neighborhoods in the process. The end result.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not just here to defend the American suburb. I'm open to the criticism. That's accurate. That's fair. What he's saying about tram stops, bus stops don't really exist. Probably wouldn't work all that well in America. There are highways. Yeah, there are small highways that have to be built, not necessarily that your children have to walk through to school, but a couple miles away. Yeah, there's sometimes, not even a highway, it's kind of smaller than that, but big roads that allow a lot of cars individually to drive from your suburb into town or to the school, or that is true. That's true.
Result was mass motorization all across America, constant traffic jams, noise and pollution, but not for the suburbanites. It was the urban dwellers, particularly those who were poor, who had to live near high traffic areas in cheap, low-quality housing. The suburbs also became a growth Ponzi scheme, where income from the suburbs couldn't cover future infrastructure overhauls, so the city had to expand and sell new properties constantly to get enough money to maintain what they already have. Not Just Bikes did a great video about this, link in the description.
Why American cities are broke. Ponzi scheme. I might have to check that out. I didn't know about all this.
The suburbs and car-centric development were useful political tools in the 1950s to enforce a Christian conservative, white nationalist hierarchy within American society, where white men are on top, women are at home, fully dependent on their husbands, and where all resources are channeled towards the white middle and upper class in the form of billions in state subsidies. And the
Jeez, this guy's really letting loose. Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that, and it's probably a uncomfortable topic that a lot of Americans don't even like to really talk about or think about.
rest of society, poor people, non-whites, were left to fend for themselves in decaying urban centers sucked dry financially by the parasitic suburbs around them. Car-centric planning became a weapon of choice for conservatives in order to maintain the unequal status quo. And this phenomenon isn't unique to America. In Europe, as our
Interesting. Very interesting. I just thought they were roads. I just thought they were inanimate objects, roads. But joking aside, like, there's probably there's a lot of introspection that he's talking about. That's probably good.
cities transition away from cars, the opponents of this change are almost always conservatives. While the incumbent Paris mayor campaigned on eliminating 50,000 parking spaces, her conservative opponent, who looks frankly diabolical even by French standards, wanted to halt decongestion measures. In Prague, a city overrun by cars, conservatives keep screaming about the cyclo-fascists ruining the city after a shadow is painted somewhere. Meanwhile, conservative district mayors are busy turning sidewalks into parking lots. In Madrid, the conservative city leadership cancelled the ultra-low emission zones, leading to local protests to bring them back. In Budapest, we have Orbán's far-right conservatives screaming about
What is it? What is this? I feel like we're getting away from the American versus European suburb discussion. We're getting a little political here. That's okay. But this is borderline getting a little off track.
how there is a witch hunt against drivers by the new center-left mayor, and complaining how in inner-city Budapest it's almost faster to walk now than to drive. Even in Germany, Bavarian conservatives are dumping money into highways while letting the rail network fall into disrepair. As a rule of thumb, in every city with decongestion measures, you'll also find conservatives screaming about the war on cars, the symbol of hierarchy in transportation, where the affluent suburban minority gets.
So he's saying that the conservatives in Europe are trying to make Europe like America. Bum, bum, bum. Oh my God.
It's to occupy 80% of public space inside cities, compared to the more egalitarian space use of public transit and bicycles. God forbid you have to get out of your giant SUV of death and get on a tram with the peasants. Of course, upholding the conservative
Giant SUV of death. First of all, I've never seen a car like this in my life. Holy cow. That's like a bus. That's, oh my God. You might kill other people in your giant SUV. You're probably pretty safe being inside of it, to be fair.
hierarchy isn't why suburbs are built today in the US. It's mostly just a necessary continuation of the Ponzi scheme that began with the first suburbs. Also, it's due to faulty zoning codes not allowing for mid-rise developments that would actually make more money for the city, increase density, and make public transit viable.
Wow.
In Europe, our suburbs are mixed, with both mid-rises, single and multi-family homes. They're an organic part of the city and contribute fairly to the local budget. There is also subsidized, affordable public transit. All in all, it's more egalitarian. And if the US situation sounds depressing in contrast, as an American, there are things you can do to potentially help change things. If there is a local transit riders union, go join it. Look if there are any initiatives on the ballot for traffic calming, bike lanes, etc. Show up to your local town hall meetings and advocate for zoning reform, ending parking minimums, and so on. If you're persistent enough, your ideas will be heard, and you can.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know this was like gonna get me up and out and in the streets rioting and picketing for all this. Anyway, this guy's obviously thought pretty deeply about all this, and I never thought about, to be fair to him, I never thought about like the moral and socio-economical ramifications of like how America designs its suburbs. Certainly never thought of that, and maybe that's the problem. But anyway, not to get too in the weeds about that, American versus European suburbs. There's a lot of stuff I feel nostalgia towards in America because I grew up here, and a lot of stuff I like. But being presented with some of these differences about how Europe does suburbs, I can't help but admit there's a lot of credit to this. Like there's some valid criticisms here. Europe definitely does a couple things much better with the suburbs, particularly the public transportation. and maybe the integration of like all the different forms of housing. Stuff is closer together. You can walk, you can bike. The public transportation is available and it works. Kids can get out more and do things without their parents in a safe way. There's a lot of advantages to the European suburb I really never knew about. So this was really quite interesting to me, educational even. So this is good. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on European suburbs versus American suburbs. That'd be fun to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.